So I've been hearing a lot of talk recently about which one is better, XRP or XLM. If you look at the price of both of them today, I want to tell you XRP. But I want to make the case to you in this episode that you can't go wrong holding either one of them. And if you're holding both, well, that just puts you in the best position of us all. I bring this up because I came across a debate a couple weeks ago about the differences between these two networks. And they raised some interesting points. At the same time, with my years in the space, I have come to a different interpretation of both of these networks. It would explain why I've been covering XRP a bit more recently, especially since the introduction of that RLUSD stablecoin, which is going to be very pertinent to this conversation. Now, if you're new, let me introduce myself before we get started. My name is Wade Teamer. You're listening to another edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. I've been in the space since 2019. I've researched over 1,000 digital assets. And the number one reason I run this show is to share this knowledge with the people, because it ain't being talked about. All I ask in return is you hit that like button. Not for me, though. Let's do it for crypto. Or specifically, XRP, XLM, whichever one you're holding, smash the like button. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go down memory lane just a little bit, because you always have to understand where you have come from to know where you're going. And that's what I have here. This article was written in 2015. Okay. It's called The Race to Replace Bitcoin. It was written by a gentleman named Michael Craig. If you look at his personal X account, he has gotten so far away from crypto, it doesn't make any sense. But this story, this 37-page article is so compelling because it tells the story of the origins of Ripple as well as the Stellar Development Foundation. And to my knowledge, this is the only source of that information. Again, I want to point back to the year this was written, because reading crypto-related information, documents from back then, give you a idea of what they thought of this back then. And it's amazing to see how much it has changed. Back then, a lot of the writing was, oh, can you try my crypto? Whereas now it's buy this Bitcoin or you're going to go broke, right? So much more maturity now, especially in the writing. But let's dive into this history lesson, guys, because it's mind blowing and I'm surprised not many people talk about it. So if you're new to this whole thing, the number one reason why I'm comfortable in telling someone to hold XRP and XLM is because they were created by the same brain. Yes, Jed McCaleb and Arthur Britto create Ripple Labs. Again, this was written by Michael Craig in The Observer. Many alterations have been made since then. We won't get into the rest of this story, but I promise you it's vast. I shared the link with our members this morning. Members of the committee have this story, so check out the membership tab when you get a chance. But I want to focus specifically on this origin story right here, just a few paragraphs. It starts by saying, to create a new and better cryptocurrency, Mr. McCaleb sought the assistance of the smartest people on earth. That's Jed McCaleb. He met with David Schwartz, and the two discussed how a consensus network would work. David joined as CTO and later became chief cryptographer. Allegedly, in a coffee shop in East Bay, Jed and David convinced Jesse Powell to invest $100,000 into what was then known as OpenCoin Inc., which was the original name of Ripple. It's very important to know. Soon after, they brought aboard legendary futurist Arthur Britto, who became the venture's chief strategist. Now, this next piece, I love how he wrote this, because this is a problem that exists in crypto today. Despite IQs that look like professional bowling scores, no one in the trio could actually operate a company. I was talking a couple weeks ago about how in relation to Hedera. Hedera was going through a marketing problem earlier in the year. And I learned that there are people within that organization who are more coders than there are suits. If you can understand what I'm getting at here, they're more inclined to building a computer system not necessarily inclined to building a people system, if that makes sense. So that's the number one issue here. These guys, they were computer guys. They were very smart, very, very amazing thinkers. Don't get me wrong. It's not that they couldn't have taken time to decide to learn business. But at this time, for what they were trying to do, they weren't as equipped as they could have been. This is Jeb, this is David, and this is Brito at this point. You want to say 2011, 2012-ish? Then comes Chris Larson. Prior to Brad Garlinghouse now. This is Chris Larson. Chris Larson completed the All-Star team as CEO of what became Ripple Labs. Mr. Larson had already taken a pair of complicated startups and built them into thriving businesses. eLoan, one of the first online mortgage companies, which IPO'd and is now part of publicly held financial services company Popular, and Prosper, one of the first peer-to-peer lending marketplaces. That's very key. It was a dream team. I'm going to jump forward to this last piece here. It was a dream team with Mr. Larson presenting a suit-wearing responsible front to the bankers and Mr. Caleb cast as the mad genius who would innovate and disrupt. Ripple quickly became the consensus successor to Bitcoin. It had brilliant technologists backed by banking relationships and wise management. It was clear to the fintech world that Ripple could match and potentially overtake Bitcoin in shaping the future of cryptocurrency. So that's the crux of this story. XRP, Ripple, and Stellar were both created with the goal of replacing Bitcoin. Honestly, they wanted to improve on the network. They wanted to improve on what Bitcoin couldn't do. That's why you'll find a lot of early Bitcoin core developers had made the jump to Ripple and Stellar. Now, the rest of this does go into the downfall. It all boils down back to this statement here. Despite the IQs that look like professional bowling scores, no one could operate a company. There's a woman that gets involved with Jeb, throws him all off of his focus. That causes a rift between the parties, between Jeb, Brito, Schwartz, Larson. And long story short, he steps away, he exits, he takes that 9 billion XRP that was talked about a few years ago and begins to sell it. So that is what caused the rift between the communities, between the XRP community and the Stellar community, was the ramifications of people finding this out. And mind you, this was roughly 2015, 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check that. But from here, what I want to show you, though, is how in the beginning, and by the way, this Jesse Powell, in case you were wondering, the same one that runs Kraken. Yes, sir. He been around for a minute. Didn't know that. But from here, what I want to show you are how in the beginning, philosophically, these networks were designed to do the same thing. Again, Jeb took the same essential code base from the XRP ledger and created Stellar. So when I say you can't go wrong with either one of them, I'm speaking from a technical build perspective. They're the same thing. And I'm going to show you now how their philosophies in the beginning were much similar as well. This is a 2019 interview courtesy of Real Vision with Jeb McCaleb. And the question that they asked him was, how does Stellar deal with regulatory issues in the smaller nations, right? And I love this response here.
And lawyers just to kind of figure out what you can and can't do.
So what Stellar is this kind of low-level protocol, right? And the people that we're talking to are existing financial institutions, so banks or remittance companies, mobile money operators. Okay. So they are already regulated, and it doesn't really change the regulatory story for them. Like they still have to, know their customer. They still have to do the AML checks on the person on the other side, things like that. And essentially, Stellar doesn't change that, right? They all we do is provide tools to make that easier and quicker for them. And then, so the regulatory burden still falls on them. And so it's basically, we're just providing this messaging format and database essentially for them.
So that's interesting because a lot of us have always asked the question, Ripple gets a lot of flack from the government. Stellar don't seem to have that same problem. the way he explained Stellar's positioning as merely a tool, a software used by regulated institutions, well, yeah, it'd be like somebody going to your boss and suing him for letting you guys use Facebook at the workplace. That don't really make no sense. I know companies that block social media use at work, but that's kind of what that's what that SEC Ripple situation is kind of like. Now, there's a few more seconds on this. Let's listen.
So who do you view as your competition? Is it the existing remittance companies and the payment networks, or is it the other cryptocurrencies or new tokens that are trying to, attack the same space? Or is it all of them? Maybe it's all of them.
So yeah, I mean, kind of the interesting thing again is like we don't have that much competition. Basically, we're kind of enabling, like for remittance companies, we're not competitive to them at all. Basically, they would use Stellar to make their payments faster and be able to pay out to more people, things like that. So it's basically like an enabling technology for them. Similar to pre-internet, there was a lot of bookstores, and it's not like internet was competitive to bookstores. But it did create this phenomenon where now there's just basically one bookstore, because like what it provides is all this leverage and scale. And so we think that the people who kind of adopt this technology first are going to benefit a lot from it, right? And as far as the other crypto efforts, I mean, most of them are like, there's a lot of stuff that just kind of gets lumped together in the blockchain space, but they're all trying to solve different problems, right? Like some of them are trying to solve, like kind of a distributed Amazon, like storage, things like that. So, or like Ethereum is just basically trying to do scripting, which is kind of like this distributed computing thing, which is totally orthogonal to what Stellar is trying to do. It's not really Ethereum's not really trying to be this universal payment network. So most of those are not directly competitive either.
So Jed McCaleb.
Notice how he described as what Stellar wanted to become was a universal payment network. Now we're going to jump over to another clip. This is from Chris Larson, 2013. Yep, 2013 Finovate. Let's get past the ad.
A CRM shouldn't set your teams back.
Now, by the way, if you want to get access to this clip, subscribe to Bank XRP. If you just got into the XRP space and you really want the Bank XRP, okay?
Thank you so much. Great to be back at Finovate. My name is Chris Larson. I'm CEO of OpenCoin. OpenCoin is the company that's building the Ripple network. Again, before OpenCoin, I was CEO of Prosper, a peer-to-peer lending company, and then before that, CEO of eLoan, which was an online lender. So a lot of you may have heard about Bitcoin. It's been in the news quite a bit lately. Ripple is really a second generation of the Bitcoin concept. And as many of you know, Bitcoin and Ripple are really two things. They are a new global currency, what we call a math-based currency. But maybe even as more importantly, they are global free payments networks. And what we've tried to focus in with Ripple is that second part. What we're trying to build is a global payment network that allows anyone, anywhere in the world, to send any currency basically for free, that is irreversible, so that you can make payments much more efficient. So we look at the currency that we've created in Ripple really as more of an enabler of a new global payment system. So let me show you.
Now, for the second time, like I said, check out Bank XRP. Y'all see the title. You can witness a live demonstration of the early Ripple network. And what he'll also go into is something that people often get confused as well, the actual relationship between the XRP token and Ripple. As he described, the XRP token is the native asset that runs the Ripple protocol, that runs on the Ripple protocol. When it comes to what makes XRP different is the currency conversion aspect. However, you'll notice in the beginning, this is 2013, that interview with Jed was 2019. The philosophy in the beginning, universal payment network, global payment network. They were aiming in the same direction. They are solving the same problem, but they're doing it from a different angle. Now, that obviously brings up the question, how are they different? And I thought long and hard about this answer. It all boils down to intent. Now, that article that we started with, got us up to about 2014, and then that's about it. The history, right? Wild story again. You gotta check that out. But I've always wanted to know, where in the world did Miss Dixon come from? All right, because I when I first got into the space, October 2019, she had only been a part of Stellar for a few months. And when I got in, I was still digging through the weeds of the whole Jed McCaleb, how he ruined Mt. Gox. Oh, yeah, he did. He was the one that created Mt. Gox, by the way. Mt. Gox and a couple other companies, and now he's going to do the same thing to Stellar. So, I was a bit worried about that. But for the sake of this discussion, I had to go back again and find some early interviews from Danielle and what she revealed about the direction now under her leadership for Stellar really begins to emphasize the difference of intent. This is an interview courtesy of securities.io, and they asked her, can you give us a breakdown of the mission behind the Stellar Development Foundation? And she says, SDF is a nonprofit, non-stock organization that has no shareholders and is beholden only to its mission, creating equitable access to the global financial system. Key word there is access. SDF shepherds the code base for the Stellar network and fosters the growth of the ecosystem. It was created to help maintain Stellar's code base, support the communities building on the network, and serve as a voice to regulators and institutions. Ultimately, we are seeking to create equitable access to the global financial system by making money more fluid, markets more open, and people more empowered. In case you were wondering, yes, Jed McCaleb is still the CTO for Stellar, still at the Stellar Development Foundation. However, Danielle was placed as the head as CEO. And I like what she adds down here. Back in 2019, remember, this is her plan. We have developed a clear strategy and attainable goal around having Stellar become the global payment standard by 2025, you say. Our strategy is developed around 3 pillars: ensuring robustness of our tech, fostering sustainable use cases, and being the blockchain people know and trust. So with that interpretation, again, the key thing that Stellar is now looking to provide is access. And wouldn't you know it, one of the biggest partners that Stellar has is MoneyGram. And what did they decide to name their flagship product? MoneyGram Access. So I summarize it as like this. The key differentiator between XLM and XRP is that Stellar XLM is they're looking to create financial independence by providing the tools that were previously only accessible by the accredited, for lack of better terms. Whereas XRP, it's a whole different story, guys. And it's really revealed in their partnerships. With XRP, their thing is currency conversion. Because take a look at this. Look at the currency pairs for XRP. And in that clip from Bank XRP, Chris Larson, 2013, he goes into demonstrating currency transactions from XRP to USD to the Swiss franc to Bitcoin. And he says Bitcoin has always been able to be transacted on the XRP ledger. We're pulling it directly from the Bitcoin blockchain and sending it directly back to the Bitcoin blockchain. So their angle is currency pairs currency conversion. And when you look at their list of partners, now it starts to make sense, because it definitely made more sense to me. SBI Remit, what do they specialize in? Remittances. What happens in a remittance? You have one country sending their currency to another country. The remittance process is that conversion in the middle, the transaction in the middle. Effective remittances are expensive. That's exactly what the XRP ledger, that's exactly what Ripple was looking to focus on. They're looking to solve that problem. And again, think back to Chris Larson's history. He was one of the first people to pioneer a non-blockchain related peer-to-peer platform. And he's doing the exact same thing with Ripple. Now, you keep going. Customers like, what's this one? Centibee. This one is fairly new. Ripple helps Centibee provide faster, cheaper, convenient remittances for migrant workers in Korea. Modular. Payment infrastructure in the UK. Seamless payments across UK and Europe. Naeum. Partnership to open doors in Southeast Asia. And the list truly goes on. I know a lot of you are familiar with the banking relationships. And again, going back to those relationships, now you can understand, I definitely do, the enormity of banking partners that could potentially work with Ripple, because what they're offering is currency convergent. That is the core thing. Now, mind you, Stellar Lumens can do the same thing, but you can see in where they just have it as a paragraph, that is Ripple's entire business model. Stellar will convert to currency, but it will be a back office feature within an app that is intended to do something else. Whereas Ripple, the application you get will be strictly for currency conversions. And again, that process is very expensive, which is the problem they're trying to solve. So it's a lot of money in that. You're making the movement of money cheaper. Ripple makes the movement of money cheaper. Stellar makes access to the tools that move money easier. That's the key difference. And that's the number one reason why you genuinely can't go wrong. But if you really want one to have an advantage over the other, bring it all back to the RLUSD stablecoin. And with the understanding that I have now, look at the description. Instant payouts, easy fiat, stablecoin on and off ramps worldwide. So now Ripple has their own dollar. They have their own currency. Outside of the XRP token, which has its own set of currency pairs, the stablecoin would be a product that is more attractive to the regular institution that may not want to get on the XRP side, but they'll be more comfortable moving a stablecoin. Either way, the underlying technology is the XRP ledger. So, to answer the question, which one is better? It depends on which problem you think is more important. Is it more important to give people access to money? Or is it more important to get the money that is already in circulation converted and placed where it needs to be promptly? I'll leave you with that. Now, as a bonus, guys, some crazy news just came out. But if you really think about it, it really ties into what we're talking about here, because Ripple, although they have their issues with the SEC, I know a lot of crypto contributions went to the Republican Party. I also know that XRP is one of the tokens that Donald Trump was accepting during his campaign. So there's that. Outside of the fact that Danielle Dixon, and do I have it right here? Yes, I do. Let me show you. This was Danielle Dixon's. What do they call this? This was her speech, her response to the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Financial Services. Stellar's been tied with CFTC since day one, and it started when Danielle showed up, okay? But Trump taps Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, a.k.a. Doge. Now listen, that to the side, I know all three of these gentlemen are very fond of digital assets and blockchain technology. Vivek was the one that was speaking at the Texas Blockchain Council before, in his run to presidency, stating that the moment he became president, he would essentially get rid of the entire SEC case against Ripple because he found a loophole. I believe we covered it on the channel. But if these are the two gentlemen that this man has decided to add to his team so early, listen, I know a lot of people are making a lot of noise about Trump being presidency, and I understand it. Don't get me wrong. But I want to attach myself to what's coming. That's the only thing that we can do. And the number one way to help with that is in these 6 pages here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the DHN Crypto Starter Kit. You can get access to it in the description. It's a totally free PDF. And like I said, I've been in this space for a minute. And I remember my first year. A lot of you are new. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to get crazy. But don't worry, I got you. Go to the description section, download this starter kit, and you'll get the 5 verticals of crypto. These are simply 5 pillars of the industry that'll give you a broad perspective of what's really coming from it. And then you get a criteria to evaluate assets. Listen, I don't care if you buy XRP, Stellar, Flare, whatever we talk about on this channel. I'm not imploring you to buy it. What I want you to do is be equipped with the best tools to navigate this space in general. And that's what this criteria is. If your asset that you're looking at does not have strong social media, network, or markability, don't expect it to go anywhere. I don't care what that is. You have to understand too, price action can be heavily manipulated. Just keep that in mind. And then lastly, utilitarianism. It's very important. That's basically what problem are they here to solve. We're entering the utility era. That will be very big. You also get links to different crypto ecosystems, both good and bad. Some we cover on the channel, some we don't. Again, this is just to give you an idea of how a crypto system operates on a daily basis. You get used to that, you'll be able to better spot assets when they come up, if they are exhibiting the right characteristics. Tools and resources, links to data, analytics, news down here at the bottom. Listen, I plan on updating this for 2025 for sure, so make sure you get your hands on the 2024 edition. It took years for me to find all of these sources. I just saved you about 5 years of time. So with that, y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.